I can improve. And when he came back out and he made his appearances after working with Freddie and he turned his grip around to traditional grip and had a different approach, he was so much more relaxed. That was the most refreshing thing you could have seen, is that your hero could also still learn that they weren't just done.
And I worked with my bandmates right after that on the Test for Echo songs. And the other guys would say, well, it still sounds like you. And at first I was kind of disappointed. But then I thought, well, of course it does. They thought it sounded the same, but when they went to play with me, there was a different clock at work now.
Driven day and night in circles, spinning like a whirlwind of leaves, stealing in and out back alleys, driven to another den of thieves. It's my turn to drive, but it's my turn to drive. Driven to the margin of error, driven to the edge of control, driven to the margin of terror, driven to the edge of a deep dark hole.
In mid-August of '97, we finished the tour earlier that summer, and there was a message to call the office. It was urgent. One of the girls from our office told me what had happened. Neil's daughter was in a terrible car accident, lost her life. I mean, it was just such a horrible shock.
It was, I mean, I still feel it today. It was the start of a whole lot of emotions that we'd never felt before. I had not had a friend who'd gone through anything like this.
Ray called me and told me about the accident. And I was just in shock, as everyone was.
You're just so unprepared for how devastating it is. And you just don't know what to do or how to help or any of that.
He could be such a private guy. And when news like this hits, you don't want to do the wrong thing. You don't want to try to comfort them and find out that you're only just comforting yourself.
Everything to do with the band ended at that moment. It just didn't seem important. It was not something you even thought about thinking about.
They didn't really know what to do with themselves, so they left Toronto. They got away from all those reminders. And then Jackie got sick. After she passed away, he was lost. And so he ran. He got on his motorcycle and ran.
When his wife died, he had to do what he needed to do to just find some kind of peace. He embarked on a long, very, very painful journey, just going and going and going and going.
Yeah, everybody was so worried about me. And in fact, there was a network I know among my friends and loved ones. Oh, I heard from him today. I got a postcard, or he called. They would all reassure each other. Because, yeah, anything could have happened to me, even by accident, let alone by design.
Fuck, we were so worried about him. But he was at arm's length.
Neil needed time. To be honest, I had no real interest in music for about a year. I hardly played, hardly listened to music.
We were on sabbatical. We were shut down.
Basically, we're talking about a journey that stretched 55,000 miles, starting from Quebec and going up to the Arctic and around Alaska and out Mexico, across all of Mexico, from Baja across the whole Mexican mainland down to Belize. I go to the small towns and the back roads, generally stopping for the night in motels along the way. And I don't think in that whole 55,000 miles, I don't know if I was ever recognized once in a little town, in a gas station or a motel or a diner. Because I'm just a guy sitting there with a hat on reading a book, A lot of times I can just slip around and be a guy, and that's all I want from traveling, too. I just want to be a guy, and that's life enough for me. Travel has always been known as a soothing balm, and even motion from the time we're little babies. We want to be rocked, and if a baby's crying, you can take it for a drive in the car and it calms down. That's the way I described it to myself at that time, that I was so stirred up into my little baby soul would only be soothed by motion. I traveled out of the darkest place a human being can come from, and it was landscapes, highways, and wildlife that revitalized me. The timeless landscapes gives your tiny existence a new perspective when you're among things that are millions of years old.
I remember getting postcards from him from wherever, and he was using different names. We have like about 6,000 nicknames for each other. So I would get a postcard with that nickname on it, so I knew who it was from. They were lifelines, you know, those little contacts. And he knew we were there somewhere, and he knew that we would be there if he wanted us to be there. All he had to do was reach out.
As far as the band was concerned, as things went on, it seemed less and less of a possibility that we would get back together, and it looked like, you know, the band was, basically it was 4 years that the band was done.
Oh, I thought it was over. Alex and I would talk about it once in a while, but there was no point. You know, I don't want to play in Rush without those other two guys. You know, there's no replacing anybody in this band. It's just not possible. It is the band, the three of us, you know. Even though he's the new guy, he's just as important.
Those two guys were the most stable thing I had, my family and loved ones, and those that dared to stay around me through that time. And so hard that, you know, I would have walked.
My concern was just that he would be okay. And I thought it was pointless to think about it beyond that. After, I don't know, a year and a half, whatever, 2 years, I sensed that he would do it again, that he would be okay. I don't think you work that hard to be what most people consider is the best in the world at something and not go and do it again one day. I didn't know if it meant that it would take 5 years or 10 years, but I thought that one day he'd have to do that again.
Stopped writing, I was ready. Traveling all that time. It was when I came to rest, and I came out to California and met my wife-to-be, and I got some stability there, and with Carrie's help, then realized that I was wanting to work again. That's basically what it took. But I had to stop moving first.
He was a little apprehensive and thought that perhaps maybe we might try to talk about perhaps trying to maybe think about possibly getting back in the studio to record a record. And it was really like that. It was quite a fragile, delicate proposition.
I don't think he knew if he could do it. You know, he hadn't played his drums in a hell of a long time. He's such a perfectionist, such a fucking monster musician. I think he was afraid of not being as good as he once was.
It was an unsureness for me, especially. Can I do this? Can I write rock lyrics like it's the most important thing in the world? Can I slave over and over and over on a drum part to refine every detail of it like it's the most important thing in the world? I don't know.
We basically booked the studio 7 days a week for 14 or 15 months. Everything had so much weight to it. And for him to get back his chops was really a slow process.
I could hear my state of mind in my drumming. Anger, obviously, but confusion. That the state I was in, and it's in the lyrics too, of course, so many of them had to deal with. You know, I could not sidestep all of that stuff.
But there was something that was so pure and truthful about the energy on Vapor Trails. It really is a representation of that time, of the coming back of the band.
In a vapor
Coming back to the stage is way more difficult, because also that's the essential existence of a band, is on a stage. I've come back to that many times, and one of the things that keeps me from quitting touring all the time is that's what a band does. So coming back to the stage was the biggest recovery possible.
Thank you. And good evening. Hartford, United States of America, nice to be back here. It's been quite long enough, I think.
That was in Hartford, Connecticut on the Vapor Trails tour, and it was such a dramatic thing after all this that we'd gone through, that here we were at our first gig back on the road, and we never even thought we would work again.
I think it was one of the few times we've had a group hug before the show. It wasn't lost on us that getting to that point was almost impossible. So, you know, we kind of looked at each other, gave each other a hug, and said, okay, let's go.